So, welcome to another episode. So, today we have Jed Etters on, who's a sales strategist, author, and podcast host. So, welcome to today's episode, Jed.
Hey, thank you so much, Javon. Happy to be here and excited to have a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And one of the things that I think was interesting about your sort of bio, if you like, was the fact that you look at non traditional ways of improving sales strategy. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that non most of the people that when they're talking about sales strategy, um, it's more about if you say things a little bit differently, if you're a little nicer, if you're a little this, a little that. I think for me, it's more about what are you specifically doing. In fact, the title of my book is Shut Up and Win, and it's think and then speak, basically strategize your best next move and then make it, right? As opposed to let's come up with a new script that people like and we'll find a way to manipulate people. You don't need to manipulate people. You need to be real, be sincere, and this is just my opinion, of course. Be real, be sincere, and help people figure out what they're looking for.
I love that organic approach because what you tend to find, as you said, is say these words, say these phrases, and you will manipulate or psychologically get what you want. But the best way to sell surely is to focus on what a client, customer, etc. wants and delivering a good service. Surely that's the best way to sell. No.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that's the case. I think that there's a lot of times where people don't necessarily realize what it is that they need. And I'll give you the example, and I love this one, and it's probably way overused, but Henry Ford said if you would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. They didn't know they wanted a motor car. And so what happens is if people aren't familiar with something that they need, they tend to go towards the thing that they're most familiar with, which may not be the best thing for them. So if you ask the questions, you really dive into what are people trying to do? What's the outcome that they're looking for? And what tools do I have available? And helping them, taking an extra step of helping them understand what's available to them and the pathway to their successful, whether it's, buying a home or whether it's, investing in something or whatever it is. This is going to get you to your goal. And here's the process that you can do. I think the best decision anyone can ever make is their own.
100%. It's the whole inception, isn't it? It has to be someone's idea. You can't really tell people something, but you can qualify what it is they're saying in order to give them insights. I mean, I use the classic car example. Someone walks into a car showroom and says, "I need a new car," and the dodgy salesman or the unprofessional salesman says, "Oh, this is the brand new car. It's good commission for him. This is the best spec." Not once did you ask the customer, how many kids have you got? What are you using the car for? What's your budget? Do you want petrol, diesel, electric? What miles per gallon do you want? All of these things that help you then narrow down, as you said, show what it is that is the right product or service for them. They might not even be aware of this new, Skoda Yeti or whatever it may be, that is now the right fit for them because of everything they've said to you. Oh, this colour, this price point. I struggle getting up and down in low cars. Okay, perfect. You've got a back issue. Fantastic. These ones higher. And I think that is across the board with anything really. I think gone are the days of the sleazy salesman tactics working, and it's more solutions focused now, which is what I think you're alluding to, is it?
Yeah, I think with so much technology being right at our fingertips, it's before people, and I would say people, the sleazy salesperson that you're talking about, right? They could pull one over on people because they didn't have the ability to get all of the information. I think at that age is kind of over, right? And I think that it's different in the sense that people are wise to the fact that people are going to look out for their own best interest and try to beat them into submission is what I call it. If I keep on telling you the same thing over and over and over, maybe eventually you'll start believing that. And that's called brainwashing, right? Um, that technique I think is over because the internet has brought so much information. So, You could still try some of that, and there's still people that do that. But I think that the better thing that we can do is just dig deeper and find out what people are looking for, help them towards that goal. I often say, if people could do it themselves, they would have already done it. People still need help identifying the right product. Maybe they need just some help understanding what the product can even do. Whatever it is, it's really just digging in, figuring out what it is that's going to help that person, and they don't oftentimes even know what's going to help themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, for the more complex things, people can't do it themselves first of all. But let's use the example of things they can do. You know, you could cut your own hair. You could, do your own roof if you learn the basic skills. Potentially, you could go online and learn how to fit a boiler. But the problem is that although you could potentially do these things, you could cut your own hair. It's probably going to look terrible. You'll save a few
It's
quid.
going to look exactly like my haircut. No, I'm just joking. I
Yeah,
didn't cut my hair.
yeah. Well, this is it. And you want to go to someone who knows the pitfalls that you might run into in your first few times. You might after 20 haircuts be awesome, but your first few, you're probably going to chop bits out. You're going to get it all wrong, and you're going to have to live with the end result of that. You might try and
Yep.
invest yourself because you've read a couple of books instead of going to an expert. I don't know. I'm just giving some examples here. There comes a time where actually it's works out cheaper sometimes to get experts involved because the time it's going to take you to learn it, the time it's going to take to implement it. When someone already has this process or solution that's ready to tailor or bespoke to your situation.
Well, I think the question a lot of people have to ask is, what's their most valuable asset? Is it their time? For a lot of people, time is a very valuable asset, right? So you could learn cutting my hair. I can learn how to do that. I can watch a ton of videos. I can go to school. I can do those things. But if time is my valuable asset and I really am focusing on, I have another goal that I really want to accomplish, and it's not learning to be the best hairdresser or to learn to cut my own hair, which thank God there's people that can do that and do an excellent job because we all need that. Uh, But if that's not my goal, then it doesn't make sense for me to spend all of my time there. So when we talk about cheaper or, faster or whatever it is, I think that I tell people all the time, you can look at something as an expense or an investment, right? Because it's either going to it's either going to cost you money to do it, or you're investing so that way you can do it yourself in the future or save yourself a bunch of money by having a professional do it.
100%. And I think that's the issue is the price versus the value. A lot of people don't can't see that, and maybe that's down to the salesman to put forward that value. But the other point on that I've tend to find, having worked in sales before, is that people don't like to feel that they've been sold to. They prefer to feel like they've bought something, even though everything is sold. You don't want to feel like, oh, I've bought that because of he sold it to me versus I want this thing. And I think that's a real nuanced part of the sales process is that you have to understand that you have to create a need for something or bring out the need. I don't necessarily create in terms of make something up, but there has to be a desire for that to be purchased in order for it to be success. And both sides have to win because you might be able to sell things quickly at the front end, but if you're not providing any value long term, unfortunately that business will fold at some point because of reviews and speaking to friends and referrals and all these sorts of things. So there has to be an inherent value also.
Yeah, I think definitely I think people don't want to feel sold to. I think that there's kind of like this, you feel used, right? If somebody's selling you something, and it could even be that it is best for you, but just the technique that was used, it feels like it was pulled over on you. And I think that that's where there's this push and pull of how much do I how much do I push someone and how much do I educate someone? because the thing is that if I take the time, I can just tell you, Javon, you need to buy this, and it might actually be better for you. Buy it, buy it, buy it, and then you're like, gosh, okay, fine, I'll just buy it just because of the pressure. You're just being sold to. You're being beat into submission. But if I want to take the actual time to invest, and I want to win a long-term customer, I say, Javon, you know, are you looking for a black sweatshirt? One that will match your beard perfectly. One one that's going to keep you warm on all of these days. These cold days. And I say, Javon, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, it is, and as you can see, for the people watching,
It
that's what he
matches.
meant by matches my beard, because we'll talk about this off air. When I sit like this, you can't tell if I've got a Gandalf beard down here. Maybe with this you can tell, but as soon as
Yeah.
you lift that, you can see the the beard. Like,
And you say, yes, this is what I'm looking for. And I say, great. Do you want help finding that?
but yeah, this is the whole yeses thing, isn't it? Getting
Well,
agreement.
it's getting to the yes, but it's not, I'm not asking you manipulative yes questions. I'm asking you questions to help you come to a realization of this is what I'm looking for, right? And when I said that people if they could do things themselves, they would. I really honestly believe everyone would. If they could ask themselves the yes questions and not need someone to bounce things off of, they would just do it themselves, right? But we need human interaction. We need real connection with people, and sometimes that's to see or reinforce the very thing that we already know, right? You already knew you needed a black sweater, what have you. What I'm doing is I'm just putting it to the front of your mind and I'm reassuring you that you're making the right decisions. And I'm showing you that it's going to be safe to go this way. And I just because I think that there's a difference between me just asking you a lot of yes questions to manipulate you or asking you questions because I know that that's what you're looking for and helping you say it. There's something different that happens in our mind when we physically say, yes, I want to go forward on this, or no, I don't. And I think a lot of people just out of fear will just say no.
But the thing is, sales resistance is very high because we've been told, well, people try and sell us stuff all the time, and sales resistance is up. But that's the job of a salesman, is to help, hold up a light like the one that's shining on me, like I'm in heaven, to light up the hallway and show them the doors and say, yeah, do you like this door or this door? And it's much like a card trick, for a magician. They say pick a card. They don't need to ask you to pick a card, to be fair, because the trick's kind of the same. They know that they already, doesn't really matter what card you pick. The trick is going to work. The trick, them asking you that, is because it's your choice and you feel that you have the control over the trick, where you don't. And I think this is much the same. The other point you mentioned is getting people to say something. It's very much the same with coaching as well. A coach, or counselor or therapist or whatever, they will never tell someone, oh, you need to do this. A mentor, you need, they will get you to say
Or
it.
at
It's the
least a
whole,
good one won't.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's the whole Socratic method, isn't it? Socrates, the gentleman behind me on the statue, he
Is
never
that
used
who
to
that
tell
is?
people things. The white one is, the other one's Marcus Aurelius. But he used to ask people, so why do you think that? Oh, I think that because I don't know. I've been told by my teacher. Oh, do you think what your teacher told you is correct? And how did they come up with that information? Oh, I'm not too sure. Maybe they got told by John, and you think John is the clever one. Oh, actually, no, he's a bit of an idiot. Why is he an idiot? Oh, because he did all these things. And that chain of questioning has, instead of you saying, "Oh, don't listen to John, he's an idiot," they've thought, actually, what I've been told might be stupid. It was John that said it, and John is an idiot. Therefore, what this is, and then they merge it together themselves, and I think that's a real art in itself to be able to do that. And that's essentially what you're saying, is that on the sales side, we need to be that person who is authentic and wants the best for the client, but also have the skills to be able to do it in the way that's going to be most beneficial. Is that fair?
Yes, and I think that there's just the way I simplify that is just saying it's leadership. Sales is not selling something on something. Sales is leading people to the best result. And by the way, that doesn't always mean that it's a good result. okay? Because some things aren't always going to be good, but they can be the best that they possibly can be. And being able to be a good leader, you're going to understand your people. You're going to find out what it is that they need by understanding them, and then you're going to lead them towards the successful path or the most successful path for them. Now, you can only lead somebody if they're willing to be led, right? And so this is kind of where you have to build the trust and the rapport with your people. And that's where I think a lot of the original salespeople really went wrong, is it was about me, 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 I, this is going to benefit me. And in that conversation, they forgot to get next to people and they just kind of pulled people in directions.
Yeah, I love that. It's about me, I, me, I. It it's about them, isn't it? Fundamentally, I think with anything, if you do a good job, it will come back to you anyway. You know, if you're a good manager, if you're a good leader, if you know you're good at your craft, if you're a good author, it will. The results will show. There's not a need to beg for stuff, if that makes sense.
Well, in my book, I talk about in Shut Up and Win, I say, take I and me out of the conversation. A lot of people don't even realize that they're saying it. Javon, I think that that's a good sweater for you. And in fact, for me, I would have bought three of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, it
I'm like, I
I
don't care.
could take I and me out of that, right? Javon, that looks like a great sweater. You know what? I've seen people that buy three of them because they enjoy them so much. Okay. We're picking on your sweater here, and I do think it's a very lovely sweater, by the way. But but do you see the difference in that conversation right there? I'm no longer
100%.
talking about me, and now I'm just talking. I take I and me out of it, and all of a sudden it's catered to you.
Yeah, and
And
it's a statement versus an opinion. You're stating the fact that people who are generally have bought the one have bought the three, and it's all like it's kind of more social proof than I think, and it's opinion based. Then it comes down to the fact of do I value your opinion, yes or no?
and most of the time, no, you
People
don't.
don't. You have
You,
to prove
you,
yourself, don't you?
yeah, you value what's important to you. And that's why you're reaching out to someone for something, is because you want a better life. You want your life to be better in some way. And that's the reason why we usually hire somebody or look for something, right? Is to benefit our life.
100%. And people might be thinking, well, I don't care about changing my life that much. Even the to stick to the hoodie for a minute. Even the hoodie that you're buying is to better your appearance or comfort level or to perceive yourself as higher status or whatever it's going to be. It's all in line with a better life. Food, oh, I don't care. Well, experience, surely it's an experience of your palate, a taste or dietary improvement. Every single thing is there to act as improvement. You're not going to buy something that's going to make your life worse. Of course, okay, you could. Devil's advocate, people could say, "Oh, well, alcohol and cigarettes and stuff can make your life worse." But at the point that you consume them, it makes your life better, even if it's. And that's a whole different question about how do we do short term versus long term and the whole marshmallow test and all that sort of stuff. But the mind perceives that to be an improvement on your life.
We as a people, and I don't care what culture you're in, I don't care what country you're in, I don't care what it is, if you're male, female, we all do things based off of pain. If it's more painful to buy the thing, we won't do it. If it makes our life better and it makes things easier, we will. And we'll make decisions based off of that. So, basically with sales, it the reason why I think a lot of people fail at sales, if I can say this, is because they don't take the time to really explore what the other person needs. And there's a whole bunch of pieces to that. There's ways to do that. There's questions to ask. There's a strategy to use and all of these different things. But at the end of the day, do you care about your people enough to take the time to explain something that maybe you know well, but they don't understand? And do you really have their best interest in mind?
That's 100% true, and it's listening to what someone wants. You know, you just come back to hoodies for a minute. Someone might say, like, "I want a black hoodie," and you might say, "Right, you want a black hoodie, but this red one is even better." But they've said they want a black hoodie, specifically black hoodie. So then you say, "Oh, well, listen, which one of these black hoodies?" They've specifically told you what they want, and then you try to tell them something else. And from a client or customer perspective, the first thing they think is, "Well, why are you going for that one? What's in it for you? What are you getting more commission on that one? Are you trying to get rid of stock, etc. Or maybe you do generally believe that's better, but I don't like red. Let's say you're a I don't know, football team. Let's say you're a Chelsea fan, right? Blue, and you don't like anything red, and Manchester United are red or whatever. Liverpool could be Leicester City. Don't know why.
You wouldn't want that red one. And that's the thing where, so this is where asking the questions come in rather than just trying to impose your will, right? And let's say that there really truly is an advantage to owning the red one, right? Then it's not ideal to just say you need to buy a red one. That's just circumventing the whole process. That's not taking them on a journey. Most people need a journey. And you would need to say something like, "Hey, listen, have you considered a red one?" "No, I like black." "Totally understand. Are you open to hearing something interesting about the red ones?" If I said that to you, what would you say?
I say, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, with the red ones, they actually they don't retain as much heat. They're more identifiable if you leave them somewhere. They're kind of the latest trend colors for this year. Whereas black, how many black ones do you already have?
Well, I love black, you see, and yeah,
Well, and I love black too. And the real thing is what people find when they go and they have that red one to switch it out with the black one is that they find that they're cooler. They're they've people they stand out more in the crowd, and they just really enjoy having that variety. That's why some people, they actually tend to buy one red one and have it in their selection. But if you really love black, you should do whatever you want. That's called the push and release. And in my book, I call that because what I'm doing is I'm pushing you, and I'm saying here are these things to consider, but then I completely back off and I say, and I'm going to release and I say, hey, but if it's not what you want, don't do it.
yeah. It's one of my previous sales managers used to say, it's about the gates, isn't it? You've got to take them through a gate, close the gate if it's not the right direction, and there's another gate open, and you go down the narrowing process of what's right for the customer. Again, it's not about you; it's about helping someone find what it is they're after.
But you know what the interesting thing about it not being about you is
That it
that
comes
it
it becomes
benefits
about
you the
you.
most.
Yeah, yeah. Literally, it's like with it, it's a whole give and it will come back to you, multiply kind of thing. The better you are at giving, it's like football for example. If you're someone who gives the ball away, you're probably going to get quite a lot of assists as well. Things come back, the stats come back or whatever. There's so many things in that. Is that even drug dealers know this. Give the first one away for free, and you've got a customer. And I'm not just to put it out there, not an advocate for that sort of stuff, but it's just a good example to use. People, businesses use that. Here, try this product out for free, giving that
Well, I mean,
value and the return, reciprocity, as Dr. Cialdini calls it.
well, Costco. They built their whole business off of free samples. You go in there and they'll keep giving you free samples. But you know what? I see people and they go and this poor old lady, putting samples on a little tray. They'll take three of them, but then they take their cart and they bring it right next to it and they load their cart up with, some sort of cracker that they've never tried before. But they're like, you know what? That was really good. I'm gonna do that. It really is give and you shall receive. And the thing is when we give, it's amazing how much, and people are afraid to give because they have this mentality that if I give, then I don't have anything for myself. But the reality is when you give, you get so much more back. And whether it's goodwill, whether it's an actual, additional clients, whatever it is, when you start giving more and putting that first, it's amazing how much you get. I would challenge everybody if you're thinking about it, if you're struggling because you don't have enough, give more and watch what you have multiply.
Love that. Love that. There's so many stories about that as well. To give things and to be generous. It's the whole scarcity versus abundance mindset, isn't it? Not to go sort of off the sales tangent, if you like, but there is definitely something in that to give
Well,
something.
well, totally. It really is an abundance mindset. And some people, look, everything can be taken to extreme. I'm not giving the shirt off of my back. I mean, I would for the right person or for the right situation, but I'm not giving the shirt off my back. But, you know, if I have if I have something extra, why wouldn't I give it? Is it because I'm scared that I'm not going to have enough when I could be really happy that somebody else has enough? And when you have it, all of this is a mindset, right? And when something goes wrong in our body, right? If I hurt my arm, then that affects all of my body, right? When our mind is not right, it affects all of our actions. And when we have that right mentality of, you know what? I'm going to have this mentality of giving. And then when I go into sales, I still have that mentality. And people see that. And then I give. And then all of the sudden, all of these things start happening in such a great way. And it's all because the mind was right and it affected everything else.
Yeah, I'm just a big believer in mindset overall, which is sort of one of the reasons I started the podcast. To speak to great people like yourself about better ways to do things, mindset, philosophy, psychology, all of the good stuff. Because it all starts up here. If you're going to, even if you want to be in the best physical shape, it starts with I want to be in the best physical shape, and I'm going to be disciplined and stick to my routine. How can I find out the best way to behave and do exercise? So it all starts with that curiosity of wanting to improve and then instilling and filtering out what's good, what's not good. And I think that's a real important part of all of this. But it just leads me to another thought in terms of curiosity and options. Do you think there's something in the paradox of choice with regards to sales? Too many options. Well, it has been proven actually that too many options actually cause us to have distress, and we are less likely to purchase. Where a lot of people tend to, well, if I show everything, people are more likely to buy. It's not necessarily the case, is it, Jed?
Yeah, I think in California where I'm at, there's a restaurant called In-N-Out Burger. Have you ever heard of In-N-Out Burger? You can get a burger or you can get a fry.
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
Yeah,
now, I mean, you get a double burger, right? Or you can get cheeseburger, but it's just you get a burger or you get fries or you just get a drink or whatever. But basically all of the options are minimized and they do phenomenal business, right? I think that the way that I classify that is there is this decision fatigue. Like even I go through it sometimes. I was looking at buying a new computer and I'm like, try and buy a new computer today. Like, you've got like it's got this screen and this big of a battery and it's got this much RAM and this much memory and all this stuff and then there's a million different combinations and I'm like, "Oh my Lord, how do I decide?" And I go into overload and then I just don't buy some. I did buy something eventually, but so I like to say if you can make things easy for people, just create the easy way for them to say yes.
yeah.
And I think go ahead. Sorry. I was going to say, I think a lot of people, what they do is they make things so overly complicated. They give them so many decisions in an effort to be helpful that they actually create more stress for the person when all they need to do is say, Javon, do you want to buy the black sweater today or the red sweater? Either one, you know the benefits of both. Which one do you feel more comfortable with? And I'll get that one taken care of for you. It puts you in the driver's seat, but then it's an easy decision, right?
Yeah, it's controlling the options as well. So if I say, do you want to go to the pub or not? The option is pub or not. Versus like, do you want to go to the pub now or after this drink? Like kind of thing. This language is so important. Again, without being manipulative, it's a way to because the thing is, the mind is very malleable in both the right and the wrong ways, and unfortunately, the way that the mind speaks to itself is typically negative focused. Negativity bias tends to be the most natural default program that runs in your mind. We need to
And
change that.
it's easy to be negative, right? That's easy. Positivity is actually more difficult and takes more energy. The interesting thing when we talk about decisions, have you ever heard of the convincer number? Have you ever heard of that?
No, not heard of it. No.
So a lot of big companies and people understand that everyone has a convincer number. So let me give you an example. If you called one of your friends and they didn't call you back after one call, what would you do?
Um, let's assume it's just a general call, not nothing super important. I'll be like, okay, I'll just wait for him to call me back. Maybe I'd send a follow up text or call in a couple of days if it was just a catch up. Obviously, if it's an important thing, I'd probably call back a couple of times. Depends on the
Okay, so let's
situation.
say you call back a second time, still no answer. Would you call back a third time?
Depending on what the situation was, I think if I needed something or I had to give them some information, then yes. Otherwise, I would wait for them to get back to me because I would assume they're busy. I would assume something they've got something on. It's not urgent, so I think there's some nuance within that.
So a third call happens. Let's say they don't call after the third call. Would you try a fourth time?
Again, depending on the nuance, it might be that something's happened to them. If I would maybe check in with a
Let's say
friend.
nothing happened to them. There's
Yeah.
nothing major. You have no context. You've just reached out. So after the third call, would you call a fourth time?
Uh, no, I'll just say a text. Call me when you get the chance, and then I wouldn't
So you
call.
give up after three times.
Again, depending on what it was, I'm not just going to keep hounding someone to death because I'm in the mindset that look, if someone is busy, there's no. Okay, let's flip it back on myself. If I've getting calls and someone calls me, I'm like, I can't pick up right now, can't pick up right, and I'm like, stop, keep calling me. I will call you back when I'm available. So I try and empathise with that to an extent.
Well, so here's the thing that's interesting is why would three calls be the issue? Why not five? Why not one? Why not seven? Why is it three calls? Why are you convinced after three calls? So what they found is that most people have a convincer number of three. If they hear something three times, they make an effort three times, then they give up after three. So that's why when you see commercials, they're like, buy now, and we'll also throw in the free gift. But don't forget to tune in and call this number to redeem your free gift now. And then they do that three times, three different ways, right? So most people have a three-time convincer number. Now there's people out there that have a one-time convincer number. You tell them something one time, you don't call them back. I don't know what I did wrong, but you didn't. But I called you and I left a message and you never called me back. You have the other people that never believe anything. They're called no-time convincers. They keep calling you for the rest of your life. You know, like they're like, I don't know. There's just got to be some issue. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna just keep on calling because I know he wouldn't ignore me. So, so these are no-time convincers, three-time convincers, one-time convincers. Everyone's got a convincer number. So, so I had, I never really thought of it this way, but I had somebody that read my book and he comes to me, he's like, Jed. I said, yeah. He said, I tried your convincer number and it really works. I said, really? I said, well, what happened? He said, well, I was outside and I was smoking, something not too legal. And one of my buddies was sitting there and I said, do you want to hit on this? And he said, no. And I said, do you want to hit on this? And he said, no. And he said, do you want to hit on this? He's like, okay. He was a three-time convincer, Jed. And I said,
Legend. Peer pressure at its finest.
I said, I don't think that's how it was intended, but I think you do get the point that, sometimes people do need to hear things a couple of times.
Well, it becomes more persuasive. Like the more you hear something, it's familiarity, isn't it? Priming, whatever word you want to use there, it, and your chance to be disciplined reduces. You could use that with cake. Do you want a slice of cake? Oh no, I'm on a diet. Are you sure? No, honestly, it's really tasty. Yeah, go on then. Like you say,
Yeah. Give me a big piece of cake.
yeah, yeah.
What the heck,
Literally, that's the that's literally a normal conversation people have. Oh, yeah, it's really all right then. And like you say, it's funny you say that three. I didn't even mean to use three there. That's kind of how a conversation will go, right? Because if most people are commit to three numbers, we don't even need to know that phrase consciously to subconsciously do those things in order to get the result that we want. It might be when we were a kid, for example. Oh, Dad, can I go here? No. Why? This person's going to be there. No. Oh, I'll do this for you. Oh, all right then. And yeah, that's quite interesting that it's maybe subconsciously ingrained. And yes, you probably get some, crazy individuals that will keep calling, keep knocking, and keep not calling, keep knocking. And on the other side, you'll get someone who's like, don't really care. But yeah, that's quite interesting. That it
Well,
can't.
what it forces you to do, if you know that most people are three-time convincers, it forces you to get out of your own comfort zone and go, why am I a three-time convincer? Why is it three? What if I did try that extra fourth time? Would that be the difference maker? And then you start to realize, you start to see the situation for what it is. It's not necessarily rejection. It's not necessarily that they're not interested. It may just be they may not be a three-time convincer. They may need to hear something a couple more times. And I don't want people to watch this and go, I'm going to beat people to death and I'm going to be the no-time convincer. That's not the key here. The key here is just being aware, right, of your own limits. If you have a friend that's worth calling more than three times, don't just give up because of your own little belief that three times is the max.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think I think
take
I
that
think
extra
I think.
step.
Sorry, go on.
That's good.
I was going to say on paper it might sound, oh, do you know what, that guy's a real hustler. He don't take no for an answer if he calls a million times. But on the inverse side, it's like, well, this guy doesn't understand personal space. He's got no social awareness. He honestly hasn't got an understanding of the fact that I will call them back at some point. So although it could be sort of pedestalized that being that person who doesn't take no for an answer is a good thing, I think it can actually be a negative in a lot of circumstances also.
Well, there comes a time where you're going outside of people's comfort zones. And I think that that's really when people start to get a little bit tough, right? But the thing is, where my uncomfortability starts isn't necessarily where your uncomfortability starts. It's no skin off your back if I call you four times, but I'm the one making the effort and not getting responded to, so I feel uncomfortable about
Well, to
it.
be fair, I got called once and I picked up.
That is true. You're really good with the phones.
Well,
Um,
how many times would you have called just out of interest? Would it have been three?
um, you know what? I probably would have. I probably only called once this morning, and then I would have emailed or something because I would assume that you weren't around your phone. But I mean, I'm one of those people that don't give up, and I try to do it in a fun and healthy way. So so when I'm really determined on something, I find a different way, a different angle. I don't keep on going at things the exact same way. And I think people become a broken record and they just try and try and try. And I think if you can be creative and strategic with your approach, it's amazing how you can break through.
Just for context, for people listening, he called me on my mobile because he was delayed due to traffic in San Diego, wasn't it? Because of the rain.
Yeah, there's
Um,
raining in San Diego. It never happens.
so I picked up first time. So I thought it was quite funny. But yeah, so just so it makes sense if you're listening. Because it probably wouldn't have done otherwise. It would have probably gone over your head. So yeah, but okay. So what are some of the other sort of concepts then in the book that you think are worth putting out there that maybe aren't as common knowledge as some of the more sort of standard approaches, if you like.
Well, I think to kind of follow on with this is there's two things, two concepts I'll kind of talk about, but no doesn't mean people don't want to know, right? There's a difference between know, N-O, and know, K-N-O-W. I'll give you an example. There was a great soda company and they were handing out free sodas. They said, "Hey, Jed, can you help us hand out free sodas?" There was a parade. And so people are just lining up. "Hey, do you want a free soda?" All these people, you go to hand them something, they're like, "No." It wasn't that they didn't want a soda, they just didn't want some, like, what does this mean? If I take this, then what is this going to mean for me? Like, is somebody expecting something out of this? Are they going to try to charge me for it? There's all these questions, right? And so people say no just as a defensive mechanism, as opposed to they don't really want to know. So if you can create safety and some familiarity around something, a lot of times people are interested to want to know. But understanding that no doesn't mean they don't want to know. And if you can understand that, then the question becomes, okay, well, if they said no to begin with, then I must not have come to the conversation with enough value. And if you can add value, then oftentimes people do want to know. Now, one example that I use in the book is I say, "Hey, Javon, do you want to go? You want to go grab a drink? I'm going to meet a couple of friends over there." And you say, "No."
No.
And I go, and I go, "Well, Javon, what if I just come get a drink and then I'll buy you a drink and it'll be a couple of people there?" And you still say, "No." And then I go, "Javon, listen, you really need to come because everybody there, I'm going to not only get you a free drink, it's going to be there with our friends, but you're going to get an autographed Tom Brady card, whatever. I don't know. Tom Brady's one of the football players, one of the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
football players of all time, right? So I'm going to give you an autographed football card of Tom Brady." And then all of a sudden you're like, "Okay, all right, I'll go." There wasn't enough value there, right? To say yes initially. So if somebody says no, it doesn't mean that they're closed off to maybe they're not interested. It means you haven't shown enough value.
Yeah, I think there's a good point in that as well. Is that the value for one person can be very different to the value for another person. Like, for example, someone who likes ballet is probably not going to care too much about Tom Brady. On the flip side, someone who is a fan of Tom Brady and has got posters on his wall, the value for them is much increased. And I think that's a real important point as well, is to understand the value for each individual. Yes, there's probably across the board value. You know, I can double your money is probably across the board is seen as a value that everyone would consider to be worthwhile. But then there is niche, values. Oh, conversation. Oh, this guy's going to be here. Oh, well, I don't really like him. Okay, but this guy's, oh my God, this guy, wow. And I think that's important to understand who it is you're speaking to or dealing with as to what makes them tick, again, in a non-manipulative way. Because a lot of the time it's to help people out. Using that example, coming for a drink. Sometimes you might ring someone because you're bored, or you might find it that they're going through a bad time, you're aware they're going through a bad time, and you just want to call them to actually help them out. They've gone through a breakup, whatever, been sacked, and you're trying to help them out by getting them out and getting them out into social situations. So sometimes you need to be able to use these techniques to help the person out, as opposed to it all being about you, me, I kind of thing.
Well, and for you, I'd say, "Hey, listen, Javon, I've got a signed Pele jersey and that I'm going to give you if you show up." And you'd be like, you would have already been there.
I mean, the thing is, like, and this is why it's important to know people well, is when you know someone, you know what makes them tick, both in a good and a bad sense. 48 Laws of Power talks about a man's thumbscrew, I believe, Robert Greene, if anyone knows of it. And he talks about knowing someone's thumbscrew, what makes them tick. And look, coming to Jeffrey Epstein, not that this is a great conversation to have, but from what we've been looking at in terms of his emails, he seemed to be a person using it for the wrong way, manipulation of thumb screws, knowing this person wants this kind of thing, this person wants this kind of thing, using it in a completely derogatory and abysmal way, which is horrendous, really. But it just shows you the power of understanding someone and what they want.
If you know what people want, and the real key here with sales, I think, is quickly being able to identify what people want and be able to talk about that intelligently in a way that shows them that it's going to help them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's, as you said, a really important point to make. So, is there any other final points that you want to make with regards to little gems of advice, or just to
I
maybe go back over some of the things that you've talked about already?
uh, I'll end it on this point because I think it kind of like all ties in together is consistency. What I say the more consistent I get, the luckier I get. A lot of people go, well, I'm only going to I'll only win if I'm lucky, or this will only happen if I'm lucky. It's amazing. You get good, you will get good. And I'll tell you, you say, I don't know if I can, you will get good at anything you practice. If you're committed to it, if you're consistent to it, you will get good at it. And, the question is, are you committed enough to be consistent enough to be successful enough? And
100%.
if you are, you will get there. There's no magic in a bottle. There's no, I say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Consistency. If you want the secret to success, it's going to be consistency.
100%. And I think one of the things people think is consistency. I saw a meme once about 10 glasses of water, and the consistency was them all at 50%. And what they said instead is, and there was another picture of the same water or Coke or whatever it was, where some were 100% full, some were 10% full, and they say this is real consistency. It's not that sometimes everything's going to be the same, it's that you're going to go regardless of how it works. And the other example I'm going to use is the pottery example. Have you heard of the pottery example before?
Give it to me. I don't know. Depending on what example you're using.
So there was two. There was a teacher with two groups. He split them. He told one group, make a piece of pottery, the vase, and the best you can make it as good as a quality group. Then he told another group to make as many as you can, quantity. At the end of the term, who made the better vase?
I haven't heard this one before, so please tell me.
Well, you'd assume it's the quality because they were focused on the quality versus just making as many as possible. But actually, what they found was it was the quantity group that won because they had made that many that they're going to get good at it. They understood the vase. They weren't overthinking, oh, how do I measure this part? No, they were just working it. So they made more and better. And I think that's what you're saying about the consistency is keep going. You will improve at some point, and that I think that's a great sort of psychological experiment, kind of, I suppose, that proves that to be the case.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And it's one of those things where, yeah, practice. Make yourself uncomfortable. Understand people have convincer numbers. Really look at the heart of what people need. Lead them, make it easy, and be strategic. It's pretty much all just, shut up and win.
That's it. Shut up and win. Absolutely love that. Is there any final points before we close this down?
I just want to say thank you so much, Javon. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for being flexible. Sorry about the rain, but the good news is there's going to be some green grass here in San Diego very soon.
Sorry about the rain. I didn't realise you were the bringer of rain. But yeah, well, thanks very much, Jed. I really enjoyed that. I wrote, obviously, I make notes when we're sort of speaking. That convincing number was quite an interesting piece, actually. So yeah, thanks for. And this is a great thing. We're coming back all full circle, actually, is you talked about the start of value, and this is the point in podcast. There has to be a value all round. The guests have to have a value. You have to have a value, and I love having the value of learning something as well from the guests. So it's a win-win-win all round.
Yeah, I agree. And you get to meet great people. So I would say, anybody looking to share something, reach out to a podcaster because I think if you have something valuable, share it.
Love it. Thanks again.
Thank you.